So from that, let me turn to our next panelist, Dr. Paulo Esteves, who is professor at Institute of International Relations of the Pontifical Catholic University in the beautiful city of Rio. So, Paulo, I think you can carry forward this discussion started by Mario and share your thoughts and perspectives on how countries could cooperate to foster LiFE economy and in particular the reforms in international financial architecture, because Mario did refer to the need to reinvent the multilateralism. So anything to be done in the direction of a multilateral financial system? So over to you. And we have actually run out of time, so we need to be very quick.
I will try.
And good.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm gonna adapt here to what Mario has said. I think we have a dialogue in the making, which I would like to explore. And I would like to start saying that I'm not a representative from the Brazilian government, even though I'm gonna refer to President Lula's speech at the G20 summit in September. Two sentences called my attention at in that speech. The first one was it's a kind of a cheesy sentence where in which President Lula said, well, we have to, when he was discussing climate change, he was saying, well, we have to remember that under every tree there is a woman, a man, and a child. And we have to feed them, and they must have jobs to keep their livelihoods. And the second sentence was quite obvious, actually. And he said, well, I instructed my ministers to bridge both tracks in the G20, the financial track and the Sherpa or the policy track, which is quite obvious, isn't it? But I'm going to return to these things. So the question is, how countries could cooperate or should cooperate or can cooperate to foster LiFE economy. And in a conversation that we had yesterday, I was saying LiFE economy is framed by planetary and social boundaries that are quite clear. And those boundaries are global. We all obviously face a planetary crisis, which is physically global. But we also face, we are also reaching a tipping point in terms of social exclusion, which is also global because we have a global pattern of consumption and production. And if LiFE is about fostering sustainable livelihoods, we have to transform these patterns of production and consumption at the global level as such. Of course, such transformations require global cooperation. The first and enormous challenge ahead of us is the fact that international institutions were not designed to enable such a cooperation. After the World War II, world order was built to accommodate newcomers, countries like India, for instance, states created by national liberation movements after the war, while reproducing and reinforcing power and economic asymmetries. And this reproduction of asymmetries manifests itself in two ways. In the regarding security matters, of course, we have Brazil, Germany, and India in this table, who claimed for a seat in the Security Council. But in security matters, the exclusionary politics or the exclusionary dynamics manifests itself by the veto power. While in the economic realm, the exclusionary dynamics manifests itself in the shareholder-based decision-making dynamic in international financial institutions. So who has more money, take the decisions and all the decisions, and has the veto power within these institutions. This is the case of the US, this is the case of the European countries as well. And this was the way to reproduce asymmetries after the World War II. And if we want to build a truly global agenda, we must reset these institutions and replace the veto power to a truly how can I say this, has a real table to enable a conversation about what the global is about. We always think about the global as a self-evident thing. But when we go to page 2, and when we leave let's say, the generic discussion about climate change and go to what would be the policies that we require now, that's the trouble. And for that, and that's the point that I think Mario is making, for that we have to hear that woman, that man, and that the children that are under the tree. In a way, we must not only make the international institutions more, let's say, more open to hear the voices from the South, but not only the voices from the governments in the South, but the voices coming from the people in the South, or the people in the planet, if you wish. So in a way, our challenge is huge. We have to reform these institutions, and we have to make these institutions, we must make these institutions open for a polycentric dynamic, not a dynamic centered in the states, but also a dynamic centered in civil society organizations, in the voice of social movements, and so on and so forth. So the task ahead of us, it's not, let's say, it's not an ordinary one. And the trouble is, we live in a time where we are witnessing an increased polarization. There is no appetite for such a kind of reforms, and even within the G20, we had this process of we had a process where the most important achievement of this presidency was the fact that we came with a communique. And this should seem like oh my God, but it is a fantastic achievement, because in a way this presidency first in a way it put aside geopolitics for a little while only. But it opened the door for the Brazilian presidency and for South Africa presidency. So in a way, India paved the way for Brazil to come, and we have as the diplomats used to say, we have a language now. So we have this paragraph where we are not mentioning war of aggression. We have this paragraph where everything regarding the wars now seems to be settled, at least in the G20. In the G20 communique. But that opens up the possibility for a conversation within the G20. And the G20 has a role in creating this new multilateral environment that Mario is referring to. And this role is not replace the multilateral, or to become the multilateral environment per se, because this is not an universal forum, not at all, but in a way to steer the multilateral process. And the second achievement of the Indian presidency was to hear the voices from the South and to bring other countries outside, beyond, besides the African Union membership, but to bring these voices from outside the G20 to this process. And this is something that has to be reproduced. So if we are in a time where we cannot create a revolution in the multilateral environment and create new institutions, what can be done? And I think what can be done, Mario went to the point. What he calls multilateral experimentalism, I'm calling now, and you're not going to like this, Mario, sorry, but it's a very trendy word, and perhaps can have some momentum. I'm calling multilateral, mission-oriented multilateralism, which means it's a minimalistic, let's say, framework for solving specific questions. I would say, in the case of the Brazilian presidency, to solve or to start solving the problem of hunger. That's the priority. That President Lula's priority. So let's think about a global alliance against hunger. And let's think that the G20 is able to shape the agenda and to start to delineate policies to fight hunger. But the G20 should go also and discuss the means of implementation, the funds that are required to fund this mission. If our mission is to fight hunger and to eradicate hunger, from where the funds are coming? Who is going to be responsible for allocate these funds in a common pool? Who is going to benefit and how these countries would benefit from these funds? These things, the so-called means of implementations, those, this very last development goals, like the Development Goal 17 or MDG 8, right? These non-important things like who is paying for this? They should come together with the policies. And that's why President Lula's assertion in the G20 summit was so important. We have to bridge these two tracks and and bring together policies and means of implementation, because otherwise the means of implementations are the exclusionary tool for the West, of the West. Sorry, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulo, for elaborating further on what we need to do in the reforming multilateralism and institutions. We need to move away from vetoes and voting powers to people's voices getting to the table, and increase this role of G20 in building institutions which are not limited to just G20, and hearing the voices of the people outside the table or outside the room is very important. So I think a lot of work needs to be done on reforming and reinventing and re-engineering the multilateralism, whether it is experimentalism of the type Mario was talking about, or the mission-oriented multilateralism geared to specific goals, is a debate one can continue, but we need to do work on multilateralism. So we have actually run out of time, but we still want to listen to Melindo, who is going to continue this discussion about public goods. So very quickly, Melindo, you have the floor.
So I hope the time given to me is not in the negative. Because that is the fundamental problem we have been facing with public goods. So they are always taken in the negative domain. So let me start my discussion, and I would like to finish even before I start my big discussion. So the theme of this summit was Global Summit on Life Economy, from Principles to Actions. This is very important to realize, because what we have been saying, what we have said for the last 2 days and even today, were started being discussed from 1970s. The principles took about 50 years or 60 years to be, to some extent, at a confidence level that, well, we can move forward with that. But perhaps we don't have any time to waste to look for the actions, because we are no longer, we can be confident with looking for principles. As Mario said, that we have to get into experimentations. Without experimenting, we cannot fine-tune our principles as to how should we go forward. And today's session is enabling the life economy. So it gives us a very clear sounding that we have to find some ways out as to how to go about it, what sort of actions are necessary. And when I was hearing to the discussions, we found that lots of issues were raised and lots of action points were also identified. But when we talk about a change in paradigm, what we found that for the human development that took place over the centuries, our system was a system of extraction. we extracted from nature without paying back anything, because economics says that nature is the resources available free from nature. And extraction was also to some extent visible in the context of our use of the labor resources as well. One group of labor was extracted and they were used by another group who didn't pay much of labor, use much of their labor, but who ultimately first started with land and then went into use of capital. And one point through these discussions for the last 3 days and for the last 50 years is now probably clear, that we have to come out of this model of extracting model of development. We have to think in terms of integrating our existence with nature. We cannot, as we have been thinking for quite some time, that we are the human beings are here to control the nature. We are, in terms of controlling the ecosystem, we have to start thinking that we are also a part of the ecosystem and we have to live with the ecosystem, and for the sake of our own living, the ecosystem has to be maintained. And that is the fundamental point that came out very clearly through the discussions that we had for the last 2.5 days. And this is also very evident in the issue background note that was issued for this summit. If I am to identify the 3 points that are very relevant, is that life economy is a process to enhance well-being of all. So this is a very fundamental point against the traditional economic system that we have been following for the last 400 years, that we are not interested in individual enhancement. We are interested in collective enhancement of human beings and their well-beings. So that leads to the second point that was raised, is that for that we have to be environment friendly. And also we realized that this is not possible if we are not socially inclusive. So one message is very clear.
Can we wind up?
That's why I said that whether it is negative. Yeah. So I have not come into my fundamental point. I am just coming. So the point is, we have to realize that we cannot exclude others while we are talking about a change in development paradigm. And that leads us to the collective action of state, private sector, and the business, and the civil society. We cannot take them away. And I wanted to talk about public goods, but there is no time. So the point that is fundamentally important is that after this summit, we have to hold a number of interactions with public at large. We just cannot think that we know everything and we can decide that what is to be done. Yeah. We require to engage the public at large in the discussion and get their involvement into the process. And I am sure very often it will come out that whatever we know to be true will come out to be wrong and false. So with this, I will end my.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, friends, we have heard 7 very erudite presentations or remarks, and I'm looking at the coordinator of the summit, Taras. how long you think we can go on? I mean, we know you have other sessions waiting for. So could we have few questions, or you think it is too much already to 10:30?
Of course, I agree we are run out of time, but we can
Take one or two questions. Okay. So one, yeah, okay, go ahead, Dr. Anand, quickly.
Sitting in one working group, and the melting of the square brackets to reach consensus, we need to do it much before the glaciers start melting. So some solutions, quickly, if I talk of say LEDs or solar, the initial cost or the fixed costs were higher, so that was taken into account and solutions came. My last point is that if I come to say single-use plastics, the problem is that the product is more or less so homogeneous that you can, with the same machines, you can manufacture different microns of plastics. So something should come concrete from technology or financial angle so that we can resolve this Gordian knot also. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, one over there. Very quickly. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Rowan. I'm a systemic innovator. I'm going to be playful about something that's serious. It's too important to be serious about. So to get a sort of planetary perspective, I kind of spoke to some of my alien friends elsewhere in the galactic universe on what they thought of the human species and the leaders of the human species, and this issue around paradigms. And the feedback was quite interesting. It was quite simple. It said instead of eating salmon, maybe they should go and look at the salmon. So I said, well, what do you mean? So they said, well, the fascinating thing about this human species, and in fact, we watch them all the time on our reality TV shows because we're really confused by them, is that they continually extrude from their hearts and their minds, and yet they place 99.9% of their attention on what they extrude and how they extrude it, while complaining to themselves about how they do things and what they do. So, these aliens were kind of saying to me, why don't they go upstream? Like the salmon. The salmon, when it spawns, it doesn't spawn downstream in the mess. It goes up to the source of the river and delivers its spawn up there. So there's this constant issue for these aliens. They don't get us. That we know where our thoughts and our, and our actions and our speaking comes from, but we continually refuse to go upstream and analyze that with the same detail that we do as to how to go to space.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is the last intervention. So go ahead, please.
This is Tariq Badr from Indian Science Writer Association. All the esteemed panel focused on one point which we are missing. Dr. Khosla mentioned 3 C's, then he added 4th one, and I think a 5th one should be added: communication. Public engagement, having dialogues with the stakeholders is very important, and I think it should go beyond these halls and rooms. It go on the grassroots level. That is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Friends, there are a couple of questions put to us. Anyone who wants to respond very quickly? You want to? Okay,
No,
quick.
I think they are all comments.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
I
yeah,
see any
yeah.
question.
They are not really questions.
Yeah,
Yes,
so I
of
think
course.
so we agree
we
with
take
that.
them in stride. So, friends, we have had a very rich discussion this morning, and we heard many perspectives. I think what is very clear, and there is really no time to summarize what was a very rich discussion, but I just want to, conclude on this note that the life economy is a very important, sort of theme of today's discourse, and it is a work in progress. We need to really debate many issues and clarify our thoughts to really take it forward, make it a people's movement, and so that everybody really adopts, everybody really understands what it means, how I should shape my own behavior, and society at large will be geared by that. And because the discussion started in G20 and global forums, I think there is this important issue of international cooperation, and reinventing multilateralism is the need of the hour to really take it forward. So on that note, I really want to thank everyone for their participation, and I invite you to give a very big round of applause to the 7 speakers for this month. Thank you. Over to the organizers.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to all the panelists for successfully concluding this session. Now, after the fruition of all the first and the second action labs yesterday, it is important to understand and reflect on the insights, new ideas and commitments that were harvested from these labs. And to help us with the same, I'm going to invite Ms. Mariana from Impact Hub.
Hello. Good morning. How are you? Are you awake? Yes. Thank you. Okay. So what we're gonna, hello panel. Good morning to you. You can stay or you can, I think it would be better if you join the participants. Otherwise we're gonna put flip charts in front of you and you're gonna not be visible and won't be able to participate. First of all, I would, a photo first. Right. Sorry, sir, I didn't know.
Join us.
I thought it was.
Oh, we could have come here.
In front?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go in front.
All right.
To be the last speaker always.
Yeah.
But if you front it in a good way.
Negative.
Thank you. I'll invite you to take up a seat, not too far away, because I actually would like to ask people that are far on the back to come closer, because what we're going to do now, it requires some movement, so you might prefer to be closer than further away. Okay. All right, do you remember the bell? Okay, who was here yesterday? Could please raise your hands. Who was here yesterday? Who was not here yesterday? Okay, only a few new people. So if you're not here yesterday, so you don't know, there is kind of a weird group that has been trying to do things in a different way in our action labs. We had 2 action labs yesterday, and there were some common themes that came out of those labs yesterday. We tried to cluster them, and we were going to try to bring something to this plenary now, so we changed a little bit the format that we had initially designed based on what we feel, what we see we are all at right now. So there was a journey that we planned, but of course we are always revisiting the journey as we go, because we need to know exactly if we're moving towards that journey or if we need to take a step back and maybe change a little bit the course. So that's what we decided to do. We decided to change a little bit so we can actually move towards the direction we would like to with everybody together. So for you who was not here yesterday in the Action Labs, you can still contribute today, and we fully encourage your participation, okay? And if you're not here yesterday, there's a bell, and we use that to grab focus. So every time we ring the bell, it's about focusing here so we can move on. I'll invite the team and our notes. And in the meantime, as we organize the room, Herod, would you like to come and give just like an overview of the goal of today and how we're going to do it?
Thank you so much. So as Mariana said, we're going to shake things up a little bit, go off script. The basic, the sub-theme of this conference is from principles to action. We've been talking about the principles, and we've been talking about pathways for action. So what we want to do is surface, before we all leave today, who has energy and interest and some degree of commitment to wanting to do something when you leave about this agenda. So I'm going to actually ask you that. So I have 2 questions. One is, so far in your experience, if you have had an insight, if you've learned something or an insight has come to you that's going to change what you do in your work or in your personal life to orient more towards the LiFE economy, can you raise your hand? You don't have to raise your hand. We're just trying to do a sense check so we can decide what we want to do the rest of the day or the morning. So raise your hand if you've had some insight that is going to shape what you do after you leave here in this direction. Okay. Raise your hand if you have an idea for something that you want to do, either individually or in collaboration with others, after you leave here, vis-a-vis this agenda that you're not already doing, or that's going to be an enhancement or extension of what you're already doing. Okay, perfect. So I think what we're going to do now is, so this is basically the team's mapping, high level, very high altitude here, of the ideas that have been presented so far. There's ideas that are interesting, things that we need to explore and go deeper into, and then there's ideas for action that needs to be taken. Usually it's by other people. Governments need to do this, investors need to do that, et cetera, right? So we want to first understand collectively, this is a sort of collective sense-making exercise, right? What is our collective awareness of the conversations we've been having? So we're going to walk through and talk about the themes and topics that we've heard in the action labs very quickly. They're clustered into 5 categories, and there's a 6th bucket. There's another bucket somewhere we'll put. It turns out that much of what was surfaced fits the 5 categories of the last set of action labs. This was not planned, but it's interesting. So what we want to do is sense check with you what has been heard, and then if you think there's something missing at the altitude of these ideas, not granular, but at the altitude, then raise your hand very quickly, and we're going to add those to this. Then we have sort of a collective mind map of what's been discussed. The next stage will be, we'll take 5 minutes in silence. Everybody will get 2 notepads or sticky pads, red and green. And on the red one, you're going to write down any ideas that you want to explore further coming out of here. whatever they are, if any. Again, you could do nothing. The second thing on the green pad, you're going to write down any inspirations you have for actions that you want to take coming out of here. And this alliance that's been formed, gallery that we've been talking about, basically we have a commitment that we will support you in the first step towards that action, whatever that first step is. Okay? Could be helping you connect with other people, could be helping you refine the ideas, could be anything. Could be just organizing the next meeting that you want to have to discuss it. So those are the two things we're going to do in silence. And then after that, people who have a green sticky, who have some idea that they want to advance, can come up here very quickly, tell us what the idea is, I mean like in 5 seconds, and put it in whichever group it belongs in. There we have understanding and mapping. Yeah. These correlate to the action labs, by the way. So understanding and mapping, we've got policy somewhere, policy regulation, we've got measurement, assessment, feedback, and we've got finance, and then we've got governance, engagement, and collaboration, which is about all of us are part of this new paradigm. How do we ensure that we all move towards it together? So these are the 5 categories. The ones who have green tags after the time in silence will come up and tell us what that is and stick it in whatever category they go in or in the other. And then everybody's going to pick which group they want to go into, right? And in the action labs, we will start with the conversation starting speakers very briefly to just sort of spark more ideas into the labs. But then the rest of the time we're going to spend in small groups clustering around ideas where people want to engage. So if you hear any ideas when these guys talk about this, or when others come and put them up there for action, this is all about action now. So maybe nothing will be on here, there's no action that anybody wants to take, that's totally fine. Or maybe there's 2 things, maybe there's 10 things, we don't know, doesn't matter. Our job is to just help you figure out if there's something you want to do, and if you do, to help support you move it forward. That's it. So any questions about process?
Would it be okay if we came up and just sort of reviewed initially what you've got?
Yes, but they're going to do that for you right now.
Present first, and then if something is... So we are presenting first, each of them, so we can also contextualize based on yesterday. And then if there's something missing, we'll call out for the missing points. We can put this down for you. And then we're going to invite you to reflect and bring your own actions, your own ideas that you feel you would like to take forward.
So you're going to be telling us what you have picked up under these categories from the different discussions which weren't in these categories. Good. And you'll read them out to us. Then you ask that if in the plenary only someone feels that something very obviously was missing, are you going to wait for all 5 or 6 or after each one?
Oh, after all.
Yeah, so we're going to do all of them, and then if you feel you're missing something, raise your hand. We're going to go around and collect those. Try to be brief, please. So it's like very key insights that we can just cluster. We're going to have time in the breakout then to go deeper into that. And then you can further explain the point. But, you know, let's just give us an overview so people know what we are talking about. Do you have a question? Let me take step by step. It's going to be easier, okay? Yes. So, yesterday...
The action labs were designed as 3 waves that build on each other. This is now the 3rd wave. We're going to start by integrating everything that's happened in the first 2 waves before we go into the 3rd.
Yes, what happened was, the first lab, we had very specific topics. So we had sustainable food, we had women-led development, we had different topics, right? Second lab, we were looking into G20 priorities. So the topics were divided by those priorities. So we are coming from examples of ideas and solutions, moving through how those ideas and solutions can respond to the G20 priorities, and now thinking about actions that need to be taken so we can advance this agenda. What we've done yesterday, what we managed to do as a team, and you're going to help us to finalize this task, because there might be things missing still from our observations, is that there were some common themes across. So for example, tech. We put tech here in orange because there was a tech discussion in every room that we were yesterday. So there was always a tech solution that was needed, a tech idea that people were coming up with. So tech enabling was everywhere. So tech cuts across all these topics that we have for today. Therefore, we've clustered them here. So we're going to present for you each of the topics of today's lab that brings ideas from yesterday that were transversal. So if we had ideas on sustainable food systems that were very specific, you're not going to see them here. We are capturing what, in a high level, was transversal to everything that we've heard and trying to prioritize into that direction. Otherwise, we go too granular, and then we cannot really focus. So that's what we're trying to do, okay? Let's go through all of them.
I think one thing, yeah. I think what you're saying is that the action labs under these subjects will yet take place.
Yes.
Exactly, okay? So
They're
this is
still
just an
happening
input
later
to them.
today.
This is just an input to them. Yes.
Trying to clarify that the recommendations some of us made in yesterday's action lab are they going to be missing because they're like, for example, you can't be discussing health in every section,
yes.
right?
Yes.
But that is a very important aspect, right? So I think if that's missing, that's the issue.
But let's do this. Let's go through.
Can I respond to that? So this is transversal. So health can be delivered through for-profit enterprise, it can be delivered through public sector, it can be delivered all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
If we want health in the new paradigm, it requires policy and regulation, requires financing, requires metrics, requires governance and collaboration. So these are transversal that cut across all the domains and all the issue areas. How do you enable the entire life economy, whether it's in healthcare or food or agriculture, anything?
Oh, I got it. So that's going to be under this year.
Today is all transversal. It's
macro,
how do you enable the life economy at scale.
Right? Let's move on. Let's get to action. Otherwise, you're going to get bored. And we don't want that.
I think we enjoyed the session before this, which was about deep thinking. That doesn't keep us bored. That keeps us very engaged, actually.
I mean, me talking too much keep you bored. That's what I'm talking about. The panels are amazing. Okay, who would like to start? Because I've been talking too much, team. You take it from here now. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name's Tom. I've been in some of the action labs that you've been participating in. So, as we move into a new space later, I'm going to be part of the sustainable finance group, anyone who wants to gather to focus on an action relating to sustainable finance. So, remember me, if you want to talk about sustainable finance, come to me. But in terms of what we've heard over the past 2 days, there were a few things that we were able to cluster around some headline transversal messages. So there were some ideas around how we work with multilateral banks, around how we reform them, and some specific actions that we discussed around capacity building for those multilateral banks. So what can we actually do to reform them is to deliver some capacity building towards them. That type of capacity building is yet to be defined, but that is essentially the overarching topic here. And especially in order to make finance more inclusive to underrepresented groups and communities, reform of multilateral banks is seen as a key idea that we need to explore to make progress in that issue. So this is crucial for making financing more effective for the life economy. Another topic was around how we can encourage more private financing, whether that's through partnerships, public-private people partnerships, for example. And then the third idea was around shifting capital to life economy ventures. So access to capital, access to finance, access to investment. How do we move capital towards those ventures to scale them and help them grow? So that relates specifically to something under new measurement paradigms around certification. So I'm going to hand over to Anna to talk about that.
Hello, my name is Anna. I think I've met some of you yesterday during the labs or in the evening. So basically, what came out as an action across all the groups is one point that I would like to highlight here as part of the new measurement paradigms, and that is basically a very transparent certification system that can be used across different sectors, across governance, across any type of areas that could use some sort of a differentiation and system that can be basically transparent and accounted for in the different regions and across countries as well. But if you have more, we only captured one here, so I'm looking at you as well in case we missed something or if you have more inputs to add. And with that, I'm going to go to Kosama.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Kosuma. I'm from Cambodia. So what we have collected, harvested yesterday on the action is to, first of all, is to create a roadmap of life economy that put gender in the central. And then second is to promote the formation of the women cooperative. Third is to do a data tracking on the consumption pattern. Fourth is about conducting the assessment, the standard of assessment for the better decision making when we decide on the finance and also anything that related to the climate change. Last one is doing the data optimizing for farming practice. Regarding on the idea that we should, that is not clear, that should be discussed and defined, is to define the role of technology, and especially on the digital inclusions in the developing countries. And then is to create a platform or something like share the data across those countries that need it for creating any innovations. Next is to adopt the adaptive strategy where we need to put life economy and climate change together when you're doing that. Related to gender is documenting the gender disaggregated data, not just only male and female, but also other gender included in this as well. Last but not least is define the clear-cut policy on 3R, but I think now it's 9R on the circular economy, not 3 anymore. I would suggest 9. So yeah, I'm sure we have been missing a lot, and you're going to be given all of this, and I would like you to fill up over that. Thank you.
So, hey everyone, I'm Luis, by the way. I'm with Policy and Regulation. For this conversation, we have had a lot of specific policy and regulations that were talked in the action labs. So we're not capturing the specific ones for the specific topics. Those ones, they are captured on the harvesting. So any of this you can see on the harvesting that you have access to. But here are more the high-level connected actions and ideas for policy and regulation that we're going to be talking about. So one of them is the role of education, so including life economy in the curriculum of schools from the beginning, but also in universities and other types of education, creating stable policy conditions for longer term investment and planning. And then one of the ideas is to create the more conducive policy for the life economy as an umbrella term. So this includes all types of economy that we're talking about, impact economy, care economy, or different types of economy. as well as for social enterprises, impact enterprises, or different types of enterprises that we're talking about. Something that also we saw here is that we have talked a lot about regulation, but not specifically how to do to change those regulations. So there is a will to change regulation, change policy, but how can we do that? And that's what we're inviting people to discuss more during this session.
Cool. The last one is governance, engagement, and collaboration. And then we have on the idea front, embedding traditional knowledge into nowadays practices. And this came along in different topics yesterday, from biodiversity and climate action, to health, to women-led development. So it came in different, and also sustainable food systems. It came in different sessions, but all related to embedding traditional knowledge into our practices. I think there was also an observation around avoiding calling it modern practices. So that's why I'm using the term nowadays practices. In actions, there are two actions that I was able to cluster for this topic. One is use human-centered design in a holistic approach for the development of solutions and new governance models. And the other action is create a collaborative platform, open source, to address challenges. You might see that some of these topics, they kind of relate to each other because there's no way we're going to track and do these things in isolation, right? It's about a holistic approach. Right, so these are actions and ideas that we managed to cluster from yesterday. Now, in good popcorn fashion, and if you were in my sessions yesterday, you know what that means. Just raise your hand and shout out if you think something is missing here. Stephen?
Which I feel, so Mother Nature wasn't invited to the process. So LiFE hasn't been represented in these conversations, and that's reflected by tech across every single one of these whiteboards, and no space for nature-based solutions. So that we need to make a space for nature-based solutions on every single one. I've got a couple others as well.
Right, so nature-based solutions as a transversal idea for action in all the topics. Is that what you mean? Yeah, absolutely. Right. But can I go to other people and then I come back? Super.
5 seconds per comment. We have to do this very, very quickly. What's missing?
Two things are missing. 5 seconds. GDP measurement of the whole economy. We're talking of certification of products and services. We're missing the big thing. The measurement of the economy and the measurement of corporate performance.
Okay.
Number 2, 3 seconds, is in terms of collaboration, engagement, repeatedly in the last session particularly, engagement of the common people in determining and what is governance. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we are kindly capturing in the human-centered design, but I can be more specific into that.
I would like to add in understanding and mapping the life economy, where I feel that multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and also interdisciplinary at times, because we are thinking of a new paradigm. So that approach needs to be there in the action. And when we are talking about governance, engagement, and collaboration, I think there should be a link between the top up to bottom down. So I found that is missing, and that has been also been stated by Professor Mehra. Thank you so much.
Could you please write that down and post it and give it to me?
I think, can I speak now? Oh, can I speak? What is missing, I think, is the concept of three-tier governance, I think. Local governments are totally missing here. That's one. And when we talk of sustainable finance also, the approach is missing, I think. The third thing which is very important is that the focus has to shift. The focus has to shift from economy to human beings.
Okay.
Unless you make that as the central point, I don't think we can come to real solutions.
Right, and actually your comment reminds me there was one thing that's missing here in the new measurement paradigms, which is the creation of a social stock exchange. This one came out from yesterday, and I think it relates to your topic. Okay, I will welcome, what time is it now? I will welcome just a few more.
My remark on this collaboration is introduction of LiFE as a subject, as a course in school and education that government can do.
That's already captured, thank you.
So NBS across every single one of these boards, but for Mother Nature to actually have a seat at each of the conversations. So that's a separate policy thing. And for women to be represented at least 50% of the conversations.
Okay, team, can you please put, just a second. Please, can you please capture nature-based solutions and putting nature in the center of policy, as well as women voices.
Hello, can I?
Okay.
Here, please.
Hi, Mario.
Hi.
I didn't see you there.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can I make 3 comments quickly?
Yes.
First,
you have 5 seconds.
Yeah. In the session about finance, I think that there is a point which is lacking. And the point is the assessment of risk in investment in countries. Action needs to be done there, and there are places in which action can be done. First of all, the rating agency, but also the OECD Committee on Export Credits. And a second point, if you allow me very quickly, is when it comes to financial institution, I think we have to question how much this can be considered bank of knowledge. Because a bank usually don't have voices for the customers. Therefore, is it correct that the debate and the experiments and the knowledge on the action to be taken as derived from banks, or we should look for other tables? And finally, on the point about knowledge, I agree on the idea that there are different social sciences that should be used. My question is, where we have a table where different social sciences are discussing together, and if possible at the multilateral level. I know only one, but probably you have more knowledge than me, and this one is called the MOST program of UNESCO. But to identify tables where you can put together different social sciences and see how they contribute to life would be crucial.
Okay. Can you just synthesize your last point in like 3 words?
Yes. Should we work with MOST to develop further life?
Okay. Where would I go? In which topic would I go?
The first one about knowledge, the one on your left. The first panel on your left, yeah.
Governance, engagement, and collaboration. Okay. Right. Okay.
While we have been talking about women's voices, I think I want to add that women's voices, it's not homogeneous. So we need to kind of incorporate the paradigm of intersectionality, where women are doubly disadvantaged when there's an intersection with caste, color, and caste. So all of that. So that should be very much, when we talk of women's voices, intersectionality should also be very much part.
Okay, I'm gonna have, look. Who? Oh, go ahead, please. This is gonna be my last. I know.
I just thought that the notion of the entire paradigm shift is about shifting the values that govern development paradigms. The notion of justice, the word justice has not come in. So I think somewhere we need to put it, that from an unjust to a just world order. Can you just put justice as a term, please? Thank you.
Okay, right. I know that look, guys, I know there are a lot of ideas. I know you have a lot to say. And the way we're going to continue this conversation is, don't be stressed. There is time to discuss, okay? Your points will be incorporated. Trust us. Right now, I will invite you to reflect on what we have so far. And if you are feeling that you are drawn to an action, excuse me, sir, can I just ask you a little bit of, thank you. So if you believe you would like to take on any of these ideas, if you like to reflect on any of these ideas, or if you like to take action in any of these, or if you still like to bring a new action or a new idea that you feel that you would like to bring onto a breakout room and discuss more in depth with your peers, please do so. But only if you really feel compelled to then bring this to the breakouts and be a champion for this. We can have many, many ideas, and we feel like there are a lot of things to be done, but sometimes we're not really ready to champion that idea, and it's okay. We just want those who are really ready to champion, okay? So I'll give you 2 minutes, just do some individual self-reflection.